Whoa, $20? What do we have to do? Dear Tim and Moby, who was Andrew Jackson? From Brittany. Well, Andrew Jackson was the seventh president of the United States. He served from 1829 to 1837, and it was one of the most influential U.S. presidents of the 19th century. Well, unlike the first six presidents, Andrew Jackson came from humble beginnings. He was born in 1767 in the remote era of the Carolinas. His parents were poor farmers, and he had a typical frontier childhood filled with hunting, fishing, and the occasional class at a one-room schoolhouse. But tragedy, his entire family, his mother and his father and his two brothers passed away by the time, in a sense, when Andrew was 14 years old. And as a young man, he began a successful law practice in Nashville, Tennessee, and married the daughter of a prominent local family. He became a judge and brought the plantation called the Hermitage. Well, yes, Jackson's wealth was built on slavery, and his wealth made him a prominent person in the Southern society. But he had a wild reputation, and more than once he got into the duels of honor, gunfights to settle personal conflicts. But we wouldn't be learning anything about him and if it weren't for what happened next. The War of 1812 broke out with England, and Jackson was commissioned as a major general in the U.S. Army. In the Battle of New Orleans, he outnumbered American forces to a surprise victory over the British. For his toughness, Jackson earned the nickname Old Hickory. Well, as word goes, Hickory is a pretty strong nickname. And anyway, he became a national hero, and in 1824 he ran for president. He won 43% of the vote, more than any other candidates. Without a majority, at least 51%, Congress had to pick a winner. In the backroom deal, they chose John Quincy Adams. Yeah, but it wasn't really fair. Washington didn't even want somebody as uneducated, violent insiders and a low class as Jackson but to be president. And in the next election, Jackson used that image to his own advantage. He campaigned as a populist representing the common man against the rich and powerful. Joining the what all rival reveals, he formed a modern Democratic Party. When he won the election, Jackson invited the public to come celebrate. Thousands have flooded the White House for his inauguration party, which got a little out of hand. Well, he thought that the government should be more responsible to the people during the political rivals. Before his administration, many jobs were held for life for the well-connected. Jackson replaced as many people as he could with the new blood, but critics claimed that he created a spoiled system, rewarding with political allies with jobs that they don't even deserve. But Jackson continued his populist reforms, focusing on the second bank of the United States. It created in 1816, and it was the federal government's official bank. He spoke out for the disruption and argument that it became corrupt and far too powerful. Americans approved these policies and re-elected Jackson in 1832. In his second term, he destroyed the second bank by withdrawing all government money for it. Well, Jackson's grab for power made him a lot of enemies. He is well known as King Andrew among his critics, and his actions during the Unification Crisis strengthened this view, and in 1832 the state of South Carolina refused to collect a federal tariff. Our tax on goods imported from Europe. In Jackson's view, states couldn't even pick and choose which federal laws that they wanted to enforce. Well, after Jackson threatened to send in the army, South Carolina compromised by agreeing to a lower tariff, but most today would agree with Jackson, but back then. And many thought he was overstepping his power. The crisis turned out to be a major defeat for Southern slaveholders, but it's not like Andrew Jackson was anti-slavery or anything. He was all for slavery, and just against the Southern states nullifying federal laws or something. He even tried unsuccessfully to outslave a law in any state literature. He also signed the Indian Revenue Act authorizing the president to negotiate land treaties with the Native American tribes. And in practice, negotiation had nothing to do with it. Tribal leaders were pretty much forced into something signing over their land. And when people resisted leaving, they were forced to walk over 1,000 mile points at a gunpoint. Many passed away with exposure to starvation and disease, and then what became known as the Trail of Tears. Over the rest of the century, more than 30 tribes of what is now Oklahoma. Well, you're right. Jackson was complicated. And in the end, he increased the power of the presidency while making it at the same time and making it more responsive to the public. He also enslaved people, and it was responsible for the forced removal and suffering of many Native Americans. And after his second term ended in 1837, Andrew Jackson retired to the Hermitage. He remained instantly popular, serving as a former advisor to future presidents until his death in 1845. Now, can he have his $20? Moby, where you at? Oh.